I'm coming from the perspective of an African American as well as an Afro Caribbean. I'm now learning the African perspective, but unfortunately for me, I honestly believe my default will always be that of an African American. As much as I can learn as many African languages as I want, I didn't grow up there. If you understand what I'm saying. So for me, it's important that I understand the African perspective. And the only way I can really truly do that is by through someone who's in Africa and who can understand and communicate, the histories of a particular space. Because what we might call as a captive market, a slave market, might be something totally different for somebody else. Language is a beautiful thing, but it's also a scary thing in the sense that, what I may perceive to be a meaning of a particular word or a symbol, but for you guys, it may have 10 to 12 or who knows, different variations of explanation that I won't be able to perceive. If you understand where I'm coming from.
Absolutely.
So for me, it's very important that I have that African voice who says, yes, okay, this is how this land or how this particular space was used. This is what the name of this particular space means. Not only means for this particular group of people, but for this group of people. If you get where I'm coming from, to give it a much deeper understanding of how spaces were utilized, especially during the transatlantic and trans-Saharan slave trade.
All right. Now, in that phase of it, where you try to talk to the people, the African historian, because there are people who have been documenting the history. African have been documenting history for a long time, okay? So what did you find out? You are coming from New York. Of course, you have a lot of, like you already said before, a lot of documentation about the transatlantic slave trade. No problem about that. When you get to Ghana, did you confront this with the Ghanaian historian, people who narrated the story? I wanted you to go a little bit deeper in that. How did you engage with them, and what did they share with you? What did you make as your conclusion at the end of the day?
Well, the historians were very well, they were very, they were open. They were definitely open to share their research, to share their knowledge. I will say, however, when I did get on the ground in terms of the different villages, I found that a lot of elders were skeptical of talking about the slave trade. I take it for a number of reasons, in the sense that one, there might be some form of guilt that's associated with it. And as well, it's shame for them. They see it as shameful. But for me as a descendant, it's vitally important that I understand what happened. So I did meet some type of hesitancy and resistance. But once my interpreters let them know that, it's important not only for me, but for the people of the diaspora to really know who they are, then they were able to tell me stories of what may have happened. So, what's really amazing is that there are so many stories of rescue or attempted rescue. As a descendant, they'll make you think, oh, okay, they captured you, your family didn't want you, so we took you. No, our family wanted us. Our family fought for us. Many families followed the slave trail, and tried to free their loved ones at a particular point. Some got caught up in trying to save their family members, and some were successful in it. I've met people who are descendants of those people who were freed, and they have these stories to this day. We don't know those stories, but those stories are also told in their oral histories. Those stories are also told in their songs, But once again, you have to understand the language, and you have to understand the culture, and you have to understand the context and how words are used, because like I said, I may have a meaning of a word, but for you as an African, it'll mean like 10 different things. You get where someone coming from. But yeah, so when I spoke to the different kings and the elders, I did meet some hesitancy, but then, I did meet some elders who were more than happy to share their experience and what they not experienced, to share their stories that have been passed down from generations to generations.
It is important to talk about these things. The reason we learn history is so that we should be able to get the lesson from it and change our ways, no? But if we don't talk about it, because honestly speaking, of slavery, very little is discussed in Africa, even among African elite. And like you pointed out, it appeared as if it's something shameful. How can we be talking about that? By doing that, of course, we give the other side of the story the opportunity to tell it to say, actually, this is the way it is. They don't even have a point of view on it. This is why I want to reinforce again that for the African diaspora and to the Africans at home who can write, there is nothing stopping you. Please continue to write, because we need to tell our story. We need to tell it from our own point of view, because story is nothing more than just two words: his and story. So, sorry, history actually is what I want to say. No? So if it is not said from your point of view, it appears that you are not really there. You are begging the favor of another person to just include you in the story, no? But
yeah, but you're right, and also don't forget her story is equally important to his story too.
Yeah.
But and you're right about that, because I forgot my point. I was going to tell you.
Anyway, you wanted to contest the fact that it shouldn't be his story, but also her story. That is fine. I understand it. Accept it.
Yeah, but I remember now. I remember now. And you're right. You know, when I got to Ghana and I started hearing the different stories and different histories, I'm like, why haven't I read this in a book? Where's you know? And as an academic, you know, we have to have written evidence in order to show the proof. If you get where I'm coming from. And I hate the fact that African orality, I can't pronounce it, Orality, is not really taken seriously, because, you know, they say, well, it can be changed, it can be doctored, you know, but no, that's the way we tell our story. That's the way that we've been able to pass down our history, you know, more so than having it written, you know. And not only that, though, but there was a good number of African civilizations who had writing systems, who had, you know, who had their own glyphs, you know, and symbols, you know, that they had their own, basically, their writing system. Sorry, the brain's not working 8 o'clock this morning, but yeah. So that's, you know, we it's important that we tell our own story, because there's so much that has not been said. There's so much that we don't know, you know, and it's within the people themselves. So you're right. I agree with you. They have to start writing. They have to start writing.
Thank you for that. All right, now coming back to this West Africa, where you are putting a lot of energy. Apart from slavery, which other aspect of West African are you looking into, or are you concentrating only on the transatlantic slave trade and the involvement of West Africa?
For now, yes, but the flip side is to also do more research on two other areas. I want to look at those, which I've kind of started already. Captives who were taken but were sent back to Africa. So in 1816, Barbados had a rebellion. Barbados had a rebellion where it's called Bussa Rebellion, right? It's actually one of the first major rebellions Barbados has had from the time it was colonized. There were conspiracies, and yes, and there were other ways that Barbados fought against, Barbadian enslaved people fought against the system of slavery. But this is one of the biggest rebellions that's been documented. And in 1818, 88 captives, prisoners from that particular rebellion were sent to Nova Scotia. And then from there, I think 2 had passed away in Nova Scotia. They were sent to Sierra Leone in Africa. So that's one particular area I'm looking to look into, as to what happened to the Barbadians in Sierra Leone when they, you know, got there, as well as to find out if there's any family members that we may not know about